Meanwhile, King Charles has formalised the removal of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's royal title. It means he can't call himself Prince Andrew or the Duke of York or use the style His Royal Highness. Details of the letter's patent used by King Charles to officially remove Andrew's royal titles have been published by the Crown Office, stating the King has been pleased by letters patent under the Great Seal of the Realm dated 3 November 2025 to declare that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shall no longer be entitled to hold and enjoy the style, title or attribute of Royal Highness and the titular dignity of Prince.
Let's start with royal author Robert Jobson, who's penned a bombshell new book featuring fresh revelations about a party then Prince Andrew hosted at the royal family's Sandringham estate for Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. According to a palace source, staff were horrified to discover the bathrooms were stocked not only with toiletries but lubricant, condoms and poppers, drugs intended to enhance sexual experience. Kinsey, the guy was out of control. This sounds like a P. Diddy party.
Yeah, and while these types of stories are humiliating, it does seem like here in the States, Andrew has bigger concerns. Pressure's mounting for him to testify before a key U.S. congressional committee. Members of the House Oversight Committee are urging him to disclose any information he may have about Jeffrey Epstein's activities. One Democratic rep told BBC's Newsnight that he wants Andrew to appear before Congress, even suggesting a subpoena might be necessary. That's going to be difficult to enforce with Andrew being abroad. But if Andrew travels to the United States, he would fall under congressional jurisdiction and could be compelled to testify. I think he'll avoid the United States like the plague, but I imagine that Fergie will be over here panhandling before we know it.
There's even conjecture now that he could flee the jurisdiction entirely, go to some country that doesn't have extradition treaties and get some protection there from any future action. And there's also been revelations or allegations that he was involved with wild sex parties in Thailand, Kinsey, perhaps involving ladyboys.
I have no reaction to that. I don't even know where to go with that one. I'm assuming that's an Andrew Loney story, and he's come out swinging lately with his Prince Andrew revelations, but all I can say is I hope that one's not true.
Joining us now is royal commentator Josh Rom. Josh, it's great to see you again. Extraordinary news with Buckingham Palace announcing that Prince Andrew is being stripped of his titles, including Prince. So he is, of course, now known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and he's agreed to vacate his Windsor estate after losing the support of his former wife, Sarah Ferguson. Josh, there is so much to unpack. I can't wait for you to bring us right up to speed with what is happening with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and, of course, Fergie, who intends to make her own plans now.
Yes, that's right. So Prince Andrew, well, the Andrew formerly known as Prince, I should say. So Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who will therefore be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, has been ordered to vacate Royal Lodge. Of course, this comes under absolutely intense public pressure after his living arrangements, the peppercorn rent, the lease, all came under intense scrutiny following both the allegations from Virginia Giuffre, as explained in her novel, the alleged 3 sexual acts, or the 3 times that she alleges that she had that her and Prince Andrew, 3 alleged incidents in the book, basically. And of course, Prince Andrew was caught out lying in that bombshell BBC Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis over when exactly he cut contact with Jeffrey Epstein. He of course said that he cut contact in 2010. Then emails were exposed saying where he said, "We're in this together, we'll play soon." Pretty damning evidence there. So, Prince Andrew being humiliated in the biggest way possible, having not just his royal titles, not just the Duke of York title, not just the Earl of Inverness, but the very title, the very prince title, his birthright being stripped from him now. Buckingham Palace releasing that bombshell statement saying that he will be moving to alternative accommodation privately funded by his brother, His Majesty the King, on the Sandringham estate. I'm predicting a very sad existence for Prince Andrew, a much more quiet existence. Yes, he'll be able to play golf. Yes, he'll be able to go on holidays, but I'm not sure these shooting weekends will necessarily happen in the future. His very purpose in life, that birthright purpose in life, has been completely stripped from him in an unprecedented way, in the most public way possible. His life is now going to be reduced to a very privileged hermit.
I think you're right. Now, what about Princess Beatrice and Eugenie? They've, of course, fled the UK and are reportedly barely holding it together, Josh.
Yes, that's right. Both of them have fled the UK. Princess Beatrice, I think she's been spotted with a business economic initiative in Saudi Arabia. So, and actually, Princess Beatrice has been smiling for the pictures. Of course, both Beatrice and Eugenie will both actually carry on. They will still hold both their princess titles and their York titles as well. So actually they're very different from Prince Andrew and of course his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson, who is understood now. I originally predicted that she would stay with Prince Andrew. Now she's reportedly been telling sources close to her and friends that actually she's making alternative arrangements. I think when Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson were living in that 30-room, that expansive Royal Lodge residence on the Grand Windsor estate, they had separate areas. There was enough space to keep their distance. Now, with Prince Andrew probably going to be moving into a much smaller, probably more sparse accommodation on the Sandringham estate, that separation, even though that they've been living together since their divorce, it's going to be a very different existence. But Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, it must be so tough for them, because notwithstanding the fact that Prince Andrew still denies all allegations of wrongdoing, Princess Beatrice and Eugenie are completely innocent. They've had absolutely nothing to do with it. They have no responsibilities over their parents. They're just trying to get on with their lives, their own careers, while still maintaining some sort of connection with the royal family to appear on certain public events when required. This must be deeply embarrassing for them. So, and whilst actually Princess Eugenie is actually on a girls' weekend in Paris, trying to let her hair down, both of them, I think they're just trying to carry on with their lives, whilst, it must be deeply embarrassing for the princesses, for their parents to be engulfed in huge scandal.
Joining Joining us now is Andrew Eborn, barrister and broadcaster and president of Octopus TV. Andrew, lovely to see you again.
Always a joy to see you, Gabriella.
The royal family is wasting no time severing and removing ties with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly known as Prince Andrew. He's being evicted from his Royal Lodge home and will move to a private residence on the King's Sandringham estate. But it's interesting, his name is now missing from the royal website. It appears to have been completely removed, Andrew.
Absolutely. What I find extraordinary, Gabriella, within minutes of airing our programme last week, every single one of the predictions that I made came true. We got over 1 million views, as we do each week, of our glorious appearances together. The King has stripped him of his various titles. He's removed the titles and honours of Prince Andrew. And now if you go and have a look at the royal website, he is nowhere to be seen, apart from one place, which I'll tell you about in a moment. But yes, he's been expunged from that sort of side. They want to put it all behind it. It's been a tsunami of scandals, and those scandals continue. But as far as the royal website is concerned, he has been removed.
There are even suggestions that Andrew Windsor will be fleeing the UK. He'll move abroad and will vanish from public view, possibly in an Arabian palace with Fort Knox style security, according to some royal experts. Andrew, what's your prediction?
Well, I like the idea of going from scandals to sandals. That's what it would be, wouldn't it? Off to Abu Dhabi. And I'll tell you why, is he's quite chums with the people over there, and he could live in absolute luxury. The press doesn't enjoy the same sort of freedoms as we have here, Gabriella, so he won't necessarily have all of that scrutiny. And he's had quite a long friendship with the people over there. And in fact, his daughters have been invited to things like the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. They've received all sorts of gifts and so on and so forth. But that certainly could be the future for him. It was talked about that originally, having been booted out, thrown out of Royal Lodge, the talk was that he might go to Sandringham. And I predict if that's going to happen, that would be after Christmas, because you'll recall that they are desperate not to have him around the Monopoly board at Christmas time. So if he is going to move, and it takes a little while to pack up those 30 rooms in Royal Lodge, then it's possibly Sandringham. But I wouldn't rule out a side abroad, because it'd be much more confidential over there. And the destination, if that's true, a lot of people are predicting it's a 16,000 square foot, 6-bedroom palace in a gated enclave with 30-foot hedges, armed guards, double checkpoints, private beaches, and media censorship. Well, that can't be too bad, can it?
Well, it's interesting. It appears that there are no plans to remove Andrew from the line of succession. Of course, he's been removed from the website and he's getting kicked out of Royal Lodge, but he is the 8th in line to the throne, with the government not planning to pass the law needed to actually remove him from the line of succession. Does this surprise you, Andrew?
Well, it is a bit surprising, isn't it? I mean, such a move does require the full act of Parliament, unlike the royal warrant that stripped him of his title. I did mention earlier that there's one side which the family have missed on the royal website, and that is in the line of succession. So get your screen grab now. It's a world exclusive, because I can guarantee the palace, having watched this programme, they watch and listen to every single word that you and I utter, they'll be going having a look at that side, because in the line of succession, it still says in 8th position, the Duke of York. Now, there's a big mistake there. Whoever's looking at the website is not looking at it closely enough. But yes, he is still in line for the throne. He is still number 8, and it would take a disastrous act for him to get there. But that is the current rules and regulations.
It's also been revealed and also been come to light that Andrew arranged a private tour of Buckingham Palace while the late Queen was in residence for businessmen from a cryptocurrency mining firm, which agreed to pay his ex-wife Fergie up to £1.4 million. That's according to the BBC. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, yes, this was June 2019. He personally arranged this VIP Buckingham Palace tour that Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth was in residence. It was this crypto firm called Pegasus Group. It should be Phoenix rising from the ashes, but it was days after they hired his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, as a brand ambassador for £1.4 4 million for this solar generated scheme. Well, the family motto should therefore be monetize the monarchy, shouldn't it? But it's not networking, it's nepotism on steroids, served with a side of sovereign swagger, is what I would say. But it's not the first time that they've been peddling access. You might remember I previously spoke about in 2010 when Sarah Ferguson was caught in a sting for the News of the World, the then News of the World, and she was basically caught in a sting for offering access to Prince Andrew, son, or Andrew as he now is. Nobody wants that access now, but apparently she was offered £500,000, £500,000 for that access. That's what happened then. And more scandal is being leaked out now.
There are so many scandals. It's unbelievable, just the amount of scandals that surround no longer Prince Andrew, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Now, Queen Elizabeth's, or late Queen Elizabeth's corgis were passed on to Andrew and Fergie as their daughters had presented the Queen with the pets to help her through a difficult time. But the pets came with a long list of strict instructions, especially when it came to feeding time. Andrew, talk to us about this.
Oh, I love it. Out of the doghouse, but still in charge of the dogs. I love it. It's got to be good. So what happened in 2022, basically, upon her death, Queen Elizabeth, she left the corgis, Muick and Sandy is what they're called, to Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. As you rightly say, this was because they were given to the Queen by her granddaughters, Princess Beatrice, 37, and Princess Eugenie, 35. They were bought for the Queen to distract her from the stress of her husband Prince Philip's hospital stay in 2022. But the list of demands is quite extraordinary, from poached pheasant to so on and so forth, to the wonderful sort of diet that they have, something which you and I would absolutely cherish. Just working on that sort of basis. So corgi custody with caveats is what I would call it. Having a look at that gourmet grub, there's no shortcuts. It's going to be very interesting because when Andrew's going to be moving out, they did say it's going to stay within the family. Buckingham Palace, they issued that public statement. We're not quite sure what the family means, whether Andrew and Sarah basically will be taking them with them, or whether other members of the royal family might keep them within Windsor.
Okay, well, I know you'll bring us right up to speed as soon as we get the news.
I'll be there in Windsor for you.
You will. You'll be breaking it with a world exclusive for us.
British MPs have urged Scotland Yard to reinvestigate sex abuse allegations against Andrew Mountbatten Windsor involving his accuser, Virginia Giuffre, who took her own life this year. Joining us is royal editor at the Daily Mirror, Russell Myers. Russell, thanks for joining us. Are Scotland Yard likely to oblige and reopen the investigation?
Well, I think there's a lot of pressure on Scotland Yard, certainly, because they've looked at this case at least a couple of times. They've decided that there was no case to answer for the former Prince Andrew. And now we have members of Parliament in the UK getting involved. Not only are they looking at royal finances, they're also heaping pressure on Scotland Yard to start looking into the relationship that Andrew had with Jeffrey Epstein, and whether that was his Epstein trafficking young women around the world, were crimes committed in London and elsewhere in the UK, or we're looking at this case of Andrew passing Virginia Giuffre's social security number and her date of birth and any other personal information onto his private bodyguard that was paid for by the taxpayer. So a lot of questions to be answered. And I think that Scotland Yard will be looking at this very, very closely over the next few weeks.
Well, yeah, a lot of questions to be answered. And now we find out that newly released emails reveal that Andrew told Jeffrey Epstein, quote, it would be good to catch up in person after the convicted sex offender was released from prison. Look, I've got to say, it just gets worse and worse, Russell, and it comes as Andrew faces pressure to come clean and speak to a congressional committee investigating Epstein as well.
Well, it does, because, Andrew has absolutely been shielded from most of this pressure from the US Congress. How many investigations have we heard of in the United States, whether it's from the FBI or different jurisdictions throughout the country, looking at Epstein's crimes? I think there is not only the pressure from the authorities, there's a certain sense of political pressure now. We've got the Democrats talking about it. We've got MPs in Britain talking about it as well. And you think the pressure came from obviously the royal family and the king taking this decision to strip away his titles, all his honours. And that, of course, for Andrew certainly was the biggest fall from grace that he could have suffered. But I think if the pressure is happening from both sides of the Atlantic now for him to talk to the authorities, then perhaps he might find himself in a position where he has no choice but to speak to FBI investigators, because certainly that this case is not going away anytime soon.
Well, you talk about falling from grace, so we should talk about Sarah Ferguson. She's going to have to find her own home after she and Andrew were told to leave the Royal Lodge. Where does she sit in all of this, and what's her future look like?
Well, you look at what has actually happened here, and I think the level of public revulsion over the last few days and weeks has reached fever pitch, because certainly that Andrew thought that he was completely shielded from that. He thought that the king would protect him. And of course, I think whilst the king and the queen have of course said that their sympathies lie with the victims and survivors of sexual abuse, that this was the king's brother, and he felt there was a duty of care towards him. He felt as though he needed to protect him. But then reports of Fergie certainly asking for somewhere else to live after she was stripped of her Duchess of York title. The public were not certainly happy with that. There was certainly calls for her to stand on her own 2 feet. Why on earth was she still living in a royal residence, even though she's been divorced from Andrew for 30-odd years? So, Fergie has a very successful career on the back of her publishing life. And she will have to stand on her own 2 feet now. There is absolutely no reason why she should be afforded anything for the royal family. And I think that you look at her career and it's certainly be in tatters now because of her own relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, look, it just stretches far and wide. It's an absolute mess, Russell. And look, I still quite can't believe this, but Andrew is still in line for succession. I mean, surely that has to be looked at now.
Well, it keeps on coming, doesn't it? First of all, we had Andrew stepping away from his Duke of York title. The announcement that he was going to relinquish all these titles didn't go far enough at all. That led to the king being heckled in public. And that really was the line that had been crossed, I think. Certainly people at the palace were very shaken at that. They thought that if this was to continue, where was the limit? You know, we have Remembrance Sunday coming up. Could there be a situation where the king was going to be heckled at Sandringham alongside other members of the royal family? It wasn't enough that the action that he'd been taking, saying that Andrew couldn't come to spend Christmas with the rest of the royal family. It wasn't enough that stripping him of his Duke of York title. People wanted action. And I think that when you look at where Andrew sits in the line of succession, of course, yes, it's very, very unlikely that he would ever be in a position to take the throne. But I don't think people have had enough say in this. And the king had certainly listened to them when he was being heckled in public. So perhaps this is the next step that the king will have to look at. He's certainly taken steps when the public have called for it, and perhaps this will be another one.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch as things unfold over the coming weeks and months. Russell Myers, really appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much. I tell you what, I don't think that King Charles has much option than to take pretty strong action with Andrew, as much for justice as for securing the ongoing future of the royal family. They just cannot afford to have any compromise with this at all.
Well, there's been a lot of reports that it was actually Prince William who said to his father, it's time, and he's been really pushing for this, and it just goes to show how strong he is. Because, look, if the Queen was still there, this wouldn't have happened, because Andrew was always mummy's boy. Yeah. You know, he was always the favourite child, so this was never going to happen, and I think good on Prince Andrew. But it makes me wonder, James, what about Harry and Meghan? I mean, if it's so easy to get rid of people's titles, what about the non-royals swanning about in Montecito being serial pests? Get rid of them as well, I say.
I don't know it's that easy to get rid of the royal titles.
Well, hang on, they just did it with Andrew.
I know, but I mean, it got to the point where they had to do it. I think Meghan and Harry have got a way to go yet.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Maybe if she releases another candle, then get rid of it.
Well, another candle. Might make a nice Christmas present, though, James.